Have you ever tried to read an ancient text, like, say, the Bible, and felt like you were reading someone else's mail? I mean, it's written to a specific person, in a specific place, dealing with very specific problems, from 2,000 years ago. It's absolutely packed with wisdom, but, let's be honest, it can also feel distant, kind of confusing, and maybe even irrelevant. So the question we've got to ask is this: how do we bridge that enormous gap? Because, getting it right, that changes everything.
And that really is the heart of it, isn't it? How do you correctly read a 2,000-year-old letter? Because if we get this wrong, we can misunderstand the whole thing. We might end up applying something that was never, ever meant for us, or, even worse, miss the timeless truth that absolutely is. So the stakes are really high. If we misinterpret these texts, we miss the point entirely. And to understand why, we first have to get a feel for just how different their world was from ours.
You see, we're separated from that original audience by these 5 massive barriers. First, there's the gap of time. I mean, we're talking about millennia here. Then there's culture. Their world was all about honor and shame, which is a whole different ballgame from our world of likes and followers. Then you have history. They were living under Roman occupation, which shaped everything. Language, the little nuances of ancient Greek and Hebrew can change the whole meaning. And finally, location, the actual geography of the ancient Near East. All these gaps create a huge distance that can so easily lead to misunderstanding.
But hey, the good news is we don't have to just guess. Bridging these gaps isn't about just picking the interpretation we happen to like best. There's actually a formal discipline, it's both an art and a science, that's designed for this exact challenge.
It's called hermeneutics. Now that sounds fancy, I know, but all it really is a framework, a set of tools that help us cross those barriers of distance to get back to one crucial thing: the author's original intent. What did the author want his first audience to understand and to do? That's the whole point. Hermeneutics gives us the tools to figure that out step by step.
And this really boils down to 2 ways of reading, right? On one side, you've got exegesis. That prefix ex means out of. This is the honest work. It's about drawing the intended meaning out of the text. But then on the other side, you've got eisegesis. The prefix eis means into. And this is where we get into trouble. It's when we read our own biases, our own modern ideas into the text. One is about discovery, the other is about forcing our own meaning onto it. Our goal always is exegesis.
Okay, so let's actually put these tools to work. We're going to dive into a specific case study, the world that the biblical letters of James, Peter, and Jude were written into. We're talking about a world of intense social and political pressure under the thumb of the Roman Empire.
So just imagine for a second living in this first-century pressure cooker. Your entire life is defined by an honor and shame culture. Society's built on these super rigid hierarchies where everybody knows their place. You survive through systems of patronage where you owe pretty much everything to some powerful benefactor. The whole world is just driven by prestige, by ambition, and by this blending of different religious beliefs called syncretism. This is the world the first Christians had to figure out how to live in.
And this is where the text just drops a bomb right into the middle of that world. In a culture where powerful speeches and clever words were literally the keys to climbing the social ladder, James comes in with this shocking statement. He's not talking about little slips of the tongue here. He's directly confronting a culture that weaponized speech for personal gain. He reframes the tongue not as a tool for your ambition, but as a dangerous fire that can burn down your entire life.
And you see this pattern again and again across these letters. I mean, look at how targeted they are. James subverts the whole culture of using rhetoric for power by teaching a wisdom that brings peace instead. In a world of rigid hierarchies, 1 Peter calls for something totally radical: mutual submission. You see, each of these letters isn't just some abstract sermon, it's a countercultural survival guide designed for its specific moment in time.
And okay, here's where it all clicks into place. This is the big payoff. We've looked back at their world, at their Babylon. Now, let's turn the mirror on ourselves. Because it turns out the pressures they faced have some chillingly familiar echoes in our modern lives. So, welcome to what we might call digital Babylon.
Their Babylon, it was a real, physical place of exile. They were pressured to conform to pagan norms, to literally bow down to statues and idols. But our digital Babylon, it isn't a place you can point to on a map. It's a digital landscape that seeps into every single part of our lives. The pressure isn't to bow to statues, but to conform to online trends, and to get caught up in the idolatry of self, of technology, and of materialism. The environment has changed for sure, but the core threat, it's the same.
And the parallels are, wow, they're kind of shocking when you lay them out like this. The Greco-Roman obsession with status and prestige, that's our constant chase for likes and followers. Their culture of public shaming, we just call it cancel culture. Their praise of pride and ambition as virtues, we hear echoes of that in a culture that often elevates speaking your truth above everything else, sometimes at the expense of living in peace with others. The pressures are the same, they've just got a new digital skin.
So, what do we do with all this? That's the big question, right? We've managed to understand the ancient context, and we can clearly see the modern parallels. The final step is to apply the timeless wisdom from these letters, not by trying to copy their specific actions, but by embracing the transformative principles that guided them.
Let's circle back to what James was saying about wisdom, because it's the perfect playbook for navigating our digital Babylon. That earthly wisdom he describes, bitter envy, selfish ambition, disorder, that sounds an awful lot like a social media feed on a bad day. But the heavenly wisdom he offers is the antidote. It's pure, it's peace-loving, considerate, full of mercy. It's a call to use our words and our platforms not for our own self-advancement, but for building a better, more humane world.
And 2 Peter gives us this amazing practical roadmap for building the kind of character that can actually thrive. And it's not automatic, it's an intentional step-by-step process. You start with a foundation of faith, sure, but you don't just stop there, you have to actively add to it virtue, then knowledge, then self-control, and on and on. This isn't a passive thing, it's the active day-by-day formation of a character that can stand firm against the pressures of any Babylon, whether it's ancient or digital.
So after all this, after bridging that 2,000-year gap, the message becomes incredibly personal and immediate. The wisdom from these ancient letters lands right here, right now, with this one challenging question for every single one of us to think about. In your life, both online and off, whose dignity does your speech defend or destroy?